My name is Brent Ellisons. I go by the handle Sixie, SIXIE number 6, letter E. I write, I hack, I observe human and other animal behavior. I don't conform to a rational, corporate, nationalist, or other us versus them, or image, symbolism over substance, garbage, so it makes me repulsive to HR and most other people in society because they are mentally bound by those things. I have hacked corporations. I have hacked social media e-commerce sites. I've gotten credit card information. I've gotten user data, messages. I have my name on other sites for finding critical vulnerabilities. I love getting, DB, MSQL, admin creds. It's my fave. Directory traversals. I do love those. I'm on the bug bounty leaderboard on the SolarEdge site. I tell you these things not because I'm like, hey guys, look at me, I'm fucking awesome. I'm telling you these things just so you know I'm not some hillbilly sitting down on the farm in his RV in Oklahoma, giving his opinion on things. Nah, this is lots of research, lots of experience, and I know what the fuck I'm talking about. That being said, if I am wrong about things, absolutely challenge me on it, and correct me on it. I look forward to the times that I'm wrong about things because it means I fucking learned something. I get tired of just constantly speaking this rhetoric over and over. Like the things that you've heard, that you're gonna hear in this, are things that people in my environment, people I've worked with, people that they've heard a lot. It's just all of that condensed into one video. Start with language control, because that is one of the most important things, because if you control their language, you control their reality. Criminal, economy, labor, what do those things mean to you? What are those words to you? I'm going to explain to you by definition what they are. Okay? Criminal, somebody who violates masses wording. Rich suits sitting in their castles just scribbling away. They're luxurious, keeping the lower classes clocked in, doing the cheap manual labor for them. But most crimes are property and drug related. So to me, that's people are suffering severely. They're competing for resources, and either they're having social altercations where they're destroying each other's property, or they are using chemicals to cope, which is really messed up. That people trying to not feel bad is looked down as criminal. Oh, he's an addict. It's like most of people in society are addicted to something. It might be as light as caffeine, but usually people have meds. But just because you're corporate, your chemicals are corporate, from a pharmaceutical company, doesn't make you any less addicted than the person down the street who's, shooting up and shit. That's so a criminal really seems to be somebody who's just suffering and struggling and is trapped in an environment, forced to exist a certain way, with these, it's like cattle with ranch hand enforcers. Police are ranch hands. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to exist. It's not healthy, and you might wonder why the suicide rate is so high. And if you don't wonder, you should start wondering. Economy. Oh, before I jump to economy, there were like 90,000 rules and regulations set in place between, some 1996 to 2000 or something. And who's going to enforce that? Those politicians, those suits scribbling away, those attorneys scribbling away in their castles are not going to enforce the stuff that they're scribbling. That's what these nationalist, militant, mindless stormtroopers are for. Economy. The economy is existentially invalid. It is unsustainable. People hate that word, but whether you like it or not, it's a fucking thing. You can't just use something until it's depleted and then expect it to last forever. That's not how things work. The law of conservation of mass is also a thing. For example, all your excess and luxuries and 5-room fucking bathroom, they don't have that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, somebody has to account for that deficit. There cannot be more than there was. The economy is, okay, for example, children can tell you everything that's going on in the Pokemon world. And it might be facts within that paracosm, but it's not existentially valid. It's not real. It's only real to them as they're participating in it. People who understand how destructive, like, the economy depends on mass consumption, mass production, and a never-ending cycle of that. It's not going to be like, okay, we made it, now we can stop. It's going to keep going until all of this is gone. That's what unsustainable is. And whether you... Anyway. So, labor... The state has conditioned people to think that their worth as a human is dependent on their labor, their output, how much they produce, how much they contribute to society as a whole. Most of the time, people that are called contributing are actually doing socially destructive things. Like, their employment is socially destructive, like police, obviously, but attorneys, their employment is socially destructive. Landscapers, which is a lot of people. So to have all of these people doing all of this labor to support the suits economy and luxuries and comforts and conveniences, they're doing all this labor for what? So they can feel good about themselves. Like, that's what happens when your blue collar gets so tight. It's like you no longer struggle. You're proud of it. Look how much work I did today for massa. You can lay tile floors all day in houses, middle and upper class houses. You can do that all day, but it's not, that does not physically, existentially equal your car, all the parts on it, gasoline, your PlayStation, your Xbox, or whatever electronics you enjoy. That's called negative labor. And they think what they're doing is honorable. There's a video of this hillbilly in my area, this redneck in a truck he gave a rim job to, where I try to explain that to him. He's like, I gotta do this all day so I can generate resources for you fucks. It's like, dude, you're killing the environment and calling it a living. Like, that's not what rational beings do. And they certainly don't spend their one existence, as far as we know, as cheap labor making shit no one needs, so that other people can buy the things that we don't need, and then they can just keep doing that. And that's another thing that holidays are for, is an economy boost. Notice there's one almost every month. There's always a celebration, even in months like July. It was July 4th, Native American Genocide Day. They're so proud of it. They're so proud of that genocide and cultural destruction. But they just give them some casinos. It'll be all good. We'll call it square. The economy, it should be alarming to you that the indicators of a strong economy are, rising sales, inflation, interest rates, home sales, and manufacturing and spending. Like, that tells you, like, it's gonna eat up everything in its path. Like, you can't. People place the economy, which is existentially invalid, over the environment, which actually sustains them. Call me crazy, all you like. All right, let's talk about revenue generation. That and control. Nothing is more important to United States officials. And They generate this revenue with existentially invalid policies, with arbitrary directives, right? And they don't enforce things themselves. They, of course, send mindless, militant, nationalist stormtroopers with symbolism on their costume to enforce them and to generate that revenue. Like in Oklahoma, you get fined or incarcerated for making faces at a dog. You know, in Maine, if you roller skate on a sidewalk, and sometimes, just ridiculous things that some little pampered, entitled, outraged citizen, well, we don't like this, master, will you ban it? Like that ever solves anything, and that's the root of the issue, is people have no critical thought, no problem solving skills, and they always beg someone else to solve all of their issues, whether it's fucking social, financial. Well, financial is social, but you get what I'm saying. As far as revenue generation for boots, like I'm going to use Maine as example. Maine State Police, they extort people's wages in traffic. 10 miles, 5 miles, whatever, an arbitrary number over their arbitrary number equals a week's worth of wages you now owe the state. Or let's say your inspection sticker is out. Well, $148 whatever dollars to the state is not you getting your car up to their standards, whatever. So it's not about safety and security. It's about control and revenue, and usually safety and security are always used to justify police state garbage. Many prisons require they have bed contracts which require 90 to 100% occupancy, and they're not just gonna sit around and wait and hope, and it's like any business is going to act in a way and decide in a manner that's going to further their business, and that's what crime is to the state. It's like the turnover eclipses that of 133 countries, whatever. It's horrible, and it turns humans into commodity, into a product. In addition to those bed contracts, police arrest people for these arbitrary or existentially invalid policies, or for coping. So people do drugs. I don't really like drugs. To me, they inhibit processing. They eat away the will to resist. But to punish someone for coping and to parade them around in front of other people and act as if they're the problem, that's fucking sick, shameful behavior by the state. And that's what they do. Possession of, meth, or possession of cocaine, or possession, whatever. It's like, man, these people are suffering, and you're going to just parade them in front of other people that are suffering as you force a debt on them. And then if they don't pay, you punish them harder. That really is going to help solve addiction and things like that. But, so police, they arrest people for these things, and then police do not get promoted for leaving people alone, right? The state can't function if people are left alone, right? So if you and I are having a social issue and we solve it ourselves, the state benefits none from that. It benefits neither in control nor revenue, right? So it tries to condition dependency. And irrational beings, like I was saying, those bound by symbolism or so, they're more inclined to submit to irrational garbage, irrational policies and directives. And they have what are called blue ribbon coalitions. And it's like when enough people get angry at something, they're like, master, okay, we've had enough. And then group up and say, politician, do something. They can't control these police, these militant, jackboot, bulletproof, flak jacket wearing mother. What is a suit going to do if police turn on them? Nothing. They can't do anything, and their employment depends on police, So what those wealthy suited leash holding masters will do, it's like, oh man, they're complaining, guys, we got to do something. Alright, well, let's start a new task force and call it we're policing the streets, but we're doing it in a different manner than we did last time. Or let's start a new training program that we can, when police fuck up 4, 5, 6 times, they can just keep getting trained as we'll get it right one of these times, or they will disband and investigate. And it's like, so this whole problem, let the problems happen and then deal with them later, is dehumanizing and exploiting people, and it doesn't solve the social issues that the state pretends it does, or pretends it attempts to. My favorite little blue ribbon coalition are the diversion courts, because they love, taking, it's called lying with statistics. They take factual data and then they present it in a manner that makes it seem like it's something it's not. I'll get back to the diversion courts, but like with the traffic extortion, main state police, the media says, well, local police don't get anything, it doesn't, it goes only 6% goes to court stuff. But what happens is it goes to the main general fund, and after it passes through that, main state police get like half of it, and then it's used to hire more of themselves, expand their gang, not just like, hey, we've got these empty positions. It's creating positions. The diversion courts, like they tell people that it prevents arrest and helps with addiction, and look at these outstanding 2 out of 100 people that made it, and it conserves tax dollars, and that is we gotta conserve tax dollars and make it look like we're doing something about crime, but also like we care and we're not trying to just send people to solitary, but what happens is those diversion courts, they don't stop addiction. They don't stop, maybe for 1 or 2 individuals that are, they're like scared to death. That's what the court is based on, is fear and constant threat, like panopticon, like there's always somebody watching, you're always going to be caught, there's always It's brainwashing, it's conditioning. Not my phrase. And the state gets to conserve these tax dollars and then use them for other purposes. An individual clocked in for a corporation, getting taxed, getting their labor taxed, on when they get their check, on everything they buy, on everything they own, just tax. What's more profitable, that or housing somebody in a concrete and steel box, and just having them go make license plates and mattresses and uniforms and other things that fund national wars, executive wars, they're called, I think. I will list sources and links for all of the things that I am discussing right now in the comments of the video or in the description, depending on which platform. We are forced to exist within this construct. That means, like, yes, within the geographic boundary, the United States or whatever nation you're in, but there's also the corporate the construct boundary, which is, like when you're at a business or you're in town, those little weird social irrational behaviors that are mandatory. That's things of that nature. Like HR, if you want to see construct boundaries, HR. If you want to see nationalist boundaries, United States nationalism, etc., etc. One of my favorite logical fallacies is the Procrustean fallacy. And what that does is it tries to take a human, a diverse, multidimensional being, don't take that as that mystical garbage that's floating around the internet, like, we're in 50 dimensions, and, pyramid eyes on the forehead and all that shit. I mean, we have different parts and aspects of our characters and personalities, not, time and space dimension. But they try to encapsulate people into either a single word or phrase, but they try to also bind them into this uniform, almost machine, cookie cutter. Like, you see the neighborhoods, like they're trying to turn people into the same thing. Look that up. Law enforcement personnel and state officials are insulated by each other. They're insulated by their different agencies. They're insulated by state and federal constitutions. They bounce off of each other and deflect and avoid responsibility for anything. If you want to see an example of that, see the Council on Judicial Complaints versus Jaquita Napoli in Cleveland County, Oklahoma, or you can see the civil suit filed against her. Oklahoma's like, though these valid, verifiable facts are, disturbing, whatever, like the Oklahoma Constitution prevents us from da-da-da. But then the feds say, well, then Oklahoma, we don't have this. It's absurd, but they always have a way out. They always have technical wording, legal wording, to where the state can make anything be anything it wants to be in their land of pretend. It's called legal fiction. It's where they can, if something prevents them from doing what they want to do or need to do, they can essentially just make something be something else. That's crazy. And that should fucking frighten you. But you're probably too busy clocked in or aspiring to clock in. If you found this talk on LinkedIn. The officers, there's the thin blue line. Why don't if there were the good cops would out the bad ones, they should do that. You don't understand how gangs work. If you go against their gang, you're done. Like, you get X'd. Look what happened to Joe Crystal. Adrian Schoolcraft is a blaring example. He recorded the police doing horrible stuff and, generating revenue. So they had him committed. It's like, okay, well, we'll just call him crazy, and then people will. So he got out and then filed a suit, right? A suit against the suits. And he won. And I call it hush money because they paid him $600,000 of the taxed, cheap, exploited labor of others, of the people he claimed to be, looking out for by recording the police. As soon as he got that $600, where's Adrian Schoolcraft? Anybody seen him? Heard from him? It's like, all right, I'll be quiet, master. All right, you gave me this. I'll go just live in snacks and Xboxes, or whatever it is his chunky cheeks does. Law enforcement also has their own Bill of Rights, separate from ours, which prevents the government agencies that employ them from investigating them in ways that would most likely prove that they're doing atrocious shit to society. Atrocious things like killing family pets. Enzo and Lodi, Dixie and Lorraine, those are just a few examples, but Dixie and Lorraine infuriates me. The people, the parents. Well, if you have a pet. There shouldn't be pets. You should view them as family members. Her first thought was, I'm gonna sue you. Like, her cha-ching. She saw him as a meal tip. I'm like, what the fuck? You don't love that animal. You just are seeking to get paid off of him. And that, again, with like Adrian Schoolcraft, it's like people get this payout from the taxed, exploited labor of other people, and then they just shut the fuck up about whatever it was, whatever valid social grievance they had against the state. Oh, we just gotta pay them and they'll be quiet. Okay. So what happens is businesses, the state, they take this into account. It's like, okay, well, say a corporation starts out, they're going to do some things that is going to harm society. They're like, all right, well, we'll just set aside this amount for lawsuit settlements, just consider it part of our overhead or whatever. That's standard business practice. That is standard business practice. Like, they're just like, fuck it, well, we'll get paid, and then if we actually get caught, human rights violations like GTEL and Securus, we'll just change our fucking names. We'll go from Global Tel-Link to GTEL. We'll go from, Securus to Securus Tech, or vice versa, whatever they did. Change the name. It's like the political correctness fallacy. You change the name of the thing, it doesn't change the behavior. So they just do that. They pay a fee, start over, do it, but it's profitable for them. But it's also negative labor, negative revenue, meaning that if they did that all day, every day for the rest of their life, they could not produce what they are using, enjoying, consuming. But it's depleting this, the environment. And, I'm not an eco-terrorist, but I'm definitely an environmentalist. And if you hurt animals, you and I are going to have a fucking problem. I have videos, and there's people that, like, these hillbillies in this area, they just, on four-wheelers, just run over turtles like it's nothing. You can see that on my TikTok. Hate saying that, but it is what it is. I didn't name it. I didn't name the platform. Now, if you want to learn about family court and trafficking, and all that, without getting wrapped up in that, far irrational part of it, Brittany Whitworth, she is on, I believe, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook. She's well versed in the family court, so I'm not going to talk about that. You can see her for that. I am going to talk about this I Am Catherine garbage, and Ryan S. Kelly. Catherine was a prosecutor who destroyed families for state revenue and control. Like, destroyed families. People that didn't deserve it. People that didn't do anything. Yet, here these people are rallying behind her after she gets a pampered, entitled flight to go get Dr. Cade. All these, the women who have been victim of some abuse or another, and including the ones who are pretending to have been, they're all rallying behind. It's like, oh, this woman, she was victim of a man and she went and killed herself. She loved her kids so much, and I don't know if you know about Ryan S. Kelly or any of the other countless, people going through the system, but they don't get to fly to another country and, go out easy and pain-free, etc. They get their fucking living rooms. They get drugs OD'd in their living. They get to blow their brains out, and then a Facebook post. They don't get this whole, cost celeb, and so for the people who are so vehemently against the family court to rally behind somebody who's destroyed so many families, as I say repeatedly, the state its enforcers, its officials care about two things and two things only: control and revenue. Human rights are tertiary at best. Feds have a thing called mandatory abstention, where if the state has endeavored in a revenue generating proceeding, then the feds will not interfere with that and let the targets, subject defendants, civil rights be violated nonstop until it's done. That's unacceptable. But all of this economy, this construct, this social class division, enforced by these mindless nationalist stormtroopers, symbolism on their costume, these road pirates, blue stripe bandits, whatever you want to call them. The Constitution, it blows my mind how many people worship Master's parchment. Things that were unbelievably inhumane were legal. People still use the law as a metric for ethics. The 13th Amendment provides a loophole for slave labor. The 14th forces us into being debt slaves. Or you don't. Look it up. People are so... we worship Master. We're free because Master said so. We can group up because Master said so. That's not freedom. They scream about how free they are, but then they worship and beg for wealthy, suited, abusive, authoritarian masters. That is the definition of, or a prime example of, cognitive dissonance. Most of the later amendments, up in the teens and 20s, guess what they do? They give you permission to beg and have for a favorite rich master. Actually, they give different groups and classes of people at different times, on the timeline of history. They give different groups of people different rights, or voting rights. So that's, yeah, sure, you're free to beg for us. You're free to worship us. You're free to clock in for us. You're free to push our national symbolism, like in Oklahoma. You can fly the American flag, the 1776 head bald eagle dick sucking Native American genocide cloth. You can fly it and be proud. But if you fly another symbol or something that's disloyal to them, you get 10 years in prison for symbolism. This is a fucking planet. I don't know where these people get off, where these politicians in boots get off thinking that they can just, we're gonna fucking trample society with these existentially invalid policies, because you have to let police hurt you. You have to let police, if you see them hurting someone else, you have to let them hurt that person. You cannot intervene. Otherwise, you're now a felon. Otherwise, you're now going to jail because you resisted authoritarian abuse, no matter how existentially valid. That is crazy to me. There's no police state here. They're just above us. They trample us. They can exploit, beat, and kill us. And nothing happens. If I was a sociopath or a sadist, I never had control in my life, or I was constantly bullied as a kid, I might want a position like that too, where I can just hurt and do whatever I want and not have to accept any consequences for it. I get shielded by unions. I get shielded by my peers, by my coworkers, by my higher ups. It's police are a problem. They are a severe social threat. And when they write about America in history books, make sure you're on the right side. They force people to exist in this dehumanizing construct, and then for the guaranteed resulting behaviors, they call them criminals for it, and they get to profit from them harder. That's not acceptable to me, and it shouldn't be acceptable to you either. Another issue is the canines, because they are a brutal threat that can refuse orders, and they've caused so much destruction to people and other officers. Not They refuse orders, they maul, they don't let go, yet they're still deployed. Like, oh, we're afraid to get punched, so we're gonna pretend that we love this animal, yet we're gonna send it to die for us. It's they send the dogs for people, on people for things like shoplifting, not complying when they're just being harassed for no reason. And then they lose the lawsuits. The Marshall Project has more information on it in an article called Mauled. When police dogs are weapons, I think it's called. Prison contracts, extortion. Trial after somebody's been arrested. Like, there are so many injustices in just regular proceedings up until trial, right? But at trial, a jury trial is supposed to be a safeguard against tyranny, right? But it's not. What it is, it's a gamble, it's a crapshoot. It's like picking a racehorse. You're picking 12 random people from the population who are conditioned to say yes to abusive authority and abusive authoritarian policies. You are asking them to say, hey, I went against your masters and their enforcers. I resisted their oppression and tyranny, their exploitation of people and the general public. Are you okay with that? What? No, he challenged our... I don't understand what he's saying. I just know he challenged our symbolism, so he's stupid. He's got to go. That's the American way. They don't like something, they block it out. It doesn't exist anymore. It's called the NIMBY fallacy. Not in my backyard. But if they truly adhered to their precious master's parchment, then they would understand that free speech means you also have to hear things that you don't like. I'm going to close this by saying one thing. If you are a flag, parchment, politician, or boot worshiper, or you spend your day polishing, blue stripe or bald eagle phallus, I'm going to tell you this. You do have the right to be stupid. You do have the right to group up behind irrational, socially destructive garbage in your favorite master's socioeconomic gang, whether it's, fascism, capitalist, socialism, whatever the fuck it is. You're begging for a master and enforcers. You have the right to do that. You have the right to exist as a mindless, abject slave. You do not have the right. You do not have the right to destroy life or cause suffering for others behind it. And if you think you do, you and I are going to have a fucking problem.